Hello everybody. My name is G-Dog. This is my friend Justin. You can call me Jane. You can call him Juice. So anywho, we're discussing tension in our sports consumer behavior class and how tension relates in sports fans' perspective.
These are the contents. We have introduction, research questions, method, theory, definition, items to measure the construct,
Research trend, discussion, conclusion, and reference, baby. Let's get the show on the road.
why tension. Tension is handled different by everybody. Tension is caused by different factors, and tension happens frequently.
Okay, so this is the dictionary definition of tension. So tension is about inner striving, unrest, or imbalance, often with psychological indication of emotion. Also, it is a state of latent hostility, anger, or opposition between individuals or groups.
Scales to measure pressure. How can we measure pressure in the sport consumer behavior discussion? Creating ideas to measure and relate to the sport fan's perspective. Anxiety, fear, headaches, increased blood pressure, rapid heart rates, violence, aggression, and frustration.
Our research question is all about determining certain items to measure tension, define the ideal tension in sports fans' perspective, and our research trends. Our method consists of literature review, our expert interviews, and our content analysis.
Basic understanding of tension theories. We have the attachment theory, social comparison theory, outcome dependency theory.
Bang. All right, so our first theory is the attachment theory, that is the strong and emotional physical attachment. It relates to our attention concept, in which fans are so attached to their teams that they use their everyday activities that bring certain triggering conditions that also leads to that also provokes anxiety, that also leads to tension.
Social comparison theory. This means determine their own social and personal worth, and we have a graph over here where it shows ability base and opinion base, and that leads to different based emotions, and that's going to lead to personal well-being and satisfaction with life. And this relates to tension because as fan bases compare each other more, the worst fan base are going to become more desperate and more tense based on their team's performance. Outcome dependency theory. This relates to tension, and you can see it in a lot of fan bases that tend to underperform. Most fan bases that underperform, you can see that they are more miserable.
Our definition of tension: it defines tension in sports fans' perspective, organizes overlap keywords that should be included, and our content interviews. So our definition of tension is feeling emotionally attached to the membership in our groups. Tension is also psychological cause, and we exert ourselves mentally and do this for too much time at once. We pressure our brain too much, causing it to be overwhelmed, and this can also cause our body to feel tensed up or cause us to feel exhausted and tired. Okay, so literature review results is when comparison with relevant fans are an important aspect that can result in positive or negative distinction for the in-group. Fan identification occurs when strong influence on sports fans' affective, cognitive, and behavior reaction to sports, especially that if your team is underperforming and doing pretty bad, then fans start to become more tense and angry.
Interview results. We interviewed Dr. Chang and Dr. Gonzalez. We asked, how would you describe tension? Second, we asked, how or when would a fan feel tension? And third, how do you know if you're feeling tense? Our first person we interviewed was Dr. Gonzalez. To answer the first question, he said tension evolves from difference in values and pretty much goes hand in hand with rivalries and how other people have different views, and that's going to cause a disagreement. He also said testing how strong a relationship with a product is and at what point are they overly invested. And by that, he also included how people are so into a team that their mental well-being and their physical changes occur for a negative result. Second, created when watching sports, organizational decisions, and companies. So when a organization does something a fan base doesn't like or a consumer doesn't like, that's going to cause tension and it's going to cause a lot of negative effects. Third, he said muscle tightens, chest muscles, blood pressure rises, and heart rate increases. So it's more of a body reaction.
Bang! Dang it. So our next interviewer was Dr. Chang, and in our first question, negative impacts, worriness, and anxiety is when tension isn't always too bad and creates proper tension. Like, for example, if game is like a blowout and one team is just dominating, no tension will occur and spectators and consumers may lose interest. But tense moments can be memorable forever, especially, for example, in 2013 NBA Finals, Spurs Heat Game 6 when Ray Allen tied the game with that crazy 3-ball. And then our second question, winning tight contested games and feisty rivalries can bring out tension. And it impacts how much money, time, and resources the customers put in. But tension can be controlled. And a third and final answer is worriness and anxiety, heart rate, and blood pressure that brings us certain physical changes in our bodies. So the true concept of tension is being anxious and hanging in front of your seat when your favorite team is in a tight, close, intense game and you don't know what the final outcome will be. It's sense of aggression. You're worried about the final outcome to see if your team can pull it out or lose a heartbreaker. But you're frustrated when your favorite team or organization makes the wrong and just stupid decisions.
Items to measure tension. These are physical indicators that questions were asked and people would give a score from 5 to 1 from almost always to never. Another item to measure tension. On this chart, we have different types of biofeedback, and these are pretty much different things that happen throughout the body when your body goes through tense moments. We have heart rate. So if you were to go through a tense moment, your heart rate would obviously race and it would be a faster heartbeat.
Hello, so this is our items to measure tension. So on a scale of 1 to 5, how much do you feel stressed when your team is losing? Also, how anxious are you when there's certain crazy and feisty playoff rivalries? Do you feel very, very frustrated when your favorite teams bringing up their young core that brought you glory and relevance? Do you also watch sports? When you watch sports, does your heart feel like it's going pounding very fast? Do you feel very pissed off when your owner gets himself into trouble? And during close and crazy contests, do your muscles tighten up like a golf ball? And when your favorite team loses, does it affect your day a lot?
For research trend, we're doing the correlational design. In the first graph, social arousal leads to decreased self-awareness, and then that could lead to de-individuation. And that's pretty much an example of, per se, if the Bills were to win a Super Bowl or something like that, fans would go crazy and they wouldn't be aware of what they're doing, and they would just act like a fool. And in the other graph, we have team identification factors. That's going to lead to different outcomes, and all the different outcomes are going to lead to different behavioral and psychological outcomes.
So in our next research trend, we discussed about our experimental design. So as you can see in our lower collective team identification, the high psychological safety flatlines at first, but then slowly increases. While in the high collective team identification, the lower psychological safety is kind of a roller coaster. Start off increasing, then flatlines a tad bit, then starts to decrease a little bit. In our last research trend, we discussed our quality of approach. As you can see, there's certain anxiety levels right over there. So, and it corresponds with our attention levels.
So for the discussion, tension has many interesting factors that come into play. Why are fans so tense? What factors impact tension? And how do we find the right amount of tension?
So our conclusion is just, no matter if your team wins or loses, it's just a game. Just find the right amount of tension, but don't be too angry or it can bring serious health factors.